burlap to line the basket. This prevents soil from washing out through the holes, though most baskets have small enough holes that this isn't necessary. I personally don't use it, but if you're concerned about soil loss, go ahead. And finally, water access. Containers dry out faster than ground soil, so you'll need to water consistently, especially once the plant is actively growing. 3. Preparing your seed potatoes. Preparation is where many people fail, so pay attention to this section. About 2 weeks before your planting date, which a $10 laundry basket, 20 pounds of potatoes, 90 days. That's it. While everyone else is digging trenches and breaking their backs in traditional potato rows, you're about to learn a method so simple, so productive, that once you see it work, you'll never grow potatoes any other way. No garden required, no fancy equipment, just a plastic basket from any store and the technique I'm about to show you. This isn't theory. This is the exact method that produces restaurant-quality potatoes in the smallest space imaginable. And by the end of this video, you'll know every single step. No garden? No problem. Let's grow some serious food. Welcome back to Verdant Garden. If you're here, you're either short on space, tired of traditional gardening methods, or you understand that potatoes are one of the most calorie-dense, storable, versatile foods you can grow. Maybe all three. Please hit the subscribe button and share. The laundry basket method solves every major problem with potato growing.
Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's go, baby, let's go. Come on, yeah. Yeah, yeah, baby. You're my little baby. Let's go outside. Do you wanna go? Come on. Go on.
This basil has been here for like maybe a week now, and it's already getting crispy.
Amazing.
And then I just throw it in the blender, and I'm good to go. And then you get soaps down here. This is what we use for bathing. This is what we use for washing dishes. This is what I use for mopping floors. It's made out of tallow from our beef cows.
That's so awesome.
And I would imagine,
Like kind of a common theme that I've learned from you as you talk about all the stuff is that you do this in batches.
I made maybe 4 batches, and I'm about ready to make more just because it's so much fun.
Yeah,
I just like to do it.
it is fun. Well, I mean, yours are really pretty and cool too. So that's that. I genuinely feel like I could give myself a self-guided tour of things all over your life for the rest of forever, but we actually have to go back to Nashville. So thank you so much for having us. Everyone, make sure you go check out More Than Farmers on YouTube. You can learn so much about what to actually do with your stuff once you get it in from the garden and grilling and everything between.
Thank you. I'll see you there.
See you there.
Tello is a mobile provider designed to save you money, offering flexible and affordable phone plans with prices up to $25 a month. In fact, they're showing me a plan here, 5 gigabytes plus unlimited talk and text for $14 a month. And I'm saying to Will, I can't get anything for $14 a month or $14 all at once in 2025. In this economy, customers can get reliable nationwide 4G, LTE, 5G coverage on America's largest network. Plus, you have flexibility to build your own phone plan and bring your own phone, which is a thing I always wanted to do since back in the day. It's like I don't want any kind of complicated relationship with my phone and pay it off over time. I just want to take whichever phone I like and then bring it to whichever plan I like. And you can keep your phone number as well. And they've got excellent reviews on Trustpilot with a 4.6 score. You're also going to get free hotspot and Wi-Fi calling, unlimited text, international calls to 60 plus countries, eSIM functionality for phone supports it, and international roaming. So if you're looking to save some cash on your phone bill, check out Tello. All the details will be in the description to get you started. Tello is a mobile provider designed to save you money, offering flexible and affordable phone plans with prices up to $25 a month. In fact, they're showing me a plan here, 5 gigabytes plus unlimited talk and text for $14 a month. And I'm saying to Will, I can't get anything for $14 a month or $14 all at once in 2025. In this economy, customers can get reliable nationwide 4G, LTE, 5G coverage on America's largest network. Plus, you have flexibility to build your own phone plan and bring your own phone, which is a thing I always wanted to do since back in the day. It's like I don't want any kind of complicated relationship with my phone and pay it off over time. I just want to take whichever phone I like and then bring it to whichever plan I like. And you can keep your phone number as well. And they've got excellent reviews on Trustpilot with a 4.6 score. You're also going to get free hotspot and Wi-Fi calling, unlimited text, international calls to 60 plus countries, eSIM functionality for phone supports it, and international roaming. So if you're looking to save some cash on your phone bill, check out Tello. All the details will be in the description to get you started.
It got stuck in the brand that was growing on, and then it also has a line from where it was strung on the plant, but still perfectly edible, just not visually as aesthetic as what we consider perfect produce. The shape in it, that's not allowed to go into a box to go to. There's a lot of food that gets wasted because it doesn't have this perfect appearance. But inevitably, you're going to have produce that doesn't meet that standard. We call those number twos. This is another example of a number two. Two grew into one, absolutely edible and tasty and delicious. And so by working with someone like Misfits, we have this beautiful, healthy, organic produce that's absolutely edible that we can package and sell to you guys.
On farms, fruits and vegetables get tossed for so many different reasons. When they have a funny shape, when they're too big or too small, or even when they have just too many smell. And it's mostly because traditional grocery stores don't want to buy these products. They only want the best looking stuff. And it's not just fresh produce. It's the parts of salmon that just aren't as popular. It's cookies when they get new branding and new packaging. It's pasta noodles when they get packaged in the wrong box. And this market, we buy all that perfectly good food. And we pass on savings to our customers. We've rescued nearly 200 million pounds of high quality food, and we're just getting started. Go to misfitsmarket.com to start saving money and saving food.
It is the middle of August. I have not weeded or watered my garden since I planted it in the spring, and I just got back from a 10-day vacation in Alaska. Let's go see what's going on in the garden. To be the best lazy gardener I can be, everything that I do has to be on the way, in the way, so that it takes as little time as possible, and I actually remember to do it. First and foremost, we see the pest control and guardians of the garden. These are our ducks and geese. Ducks and geese are way less harmful predators of a lot of the garden pests that might actually eat your plants than chickens are, because they don't go like this right in a freshly planted garden bed or eat all the seeds they just planted because they can't see them under the soil. So this handy dandy little fence just opens right up here. So every evening, right before bedtime, I can let these guys come into the garden, do their best work, and then because they want to go back in their coop at night, so they don't spend all day fucking about me. Here's one of the things that's on my way in the way. Stay hydrated, my friends. It's like 96 degrees out there. Also, you'll see a whole bunch of tools right at the entrance of the garden. Yes, would they last longer if they were kept in a shed or inside the barn? Absolutely. But then, if I had to go up to the shed or into the barn to have to get them when I use them, would I actually be as inclined to use them right when I needed them? No. So we spend $2 a shovel at estate sales, and we hope they last for 2 years, and we put them everywhere that we need them all the time, and then we actually use them. Right here too, we have another guardian. This is some homemade fertilizer. Oh, stinky. That'll keep some serious animals out in there too, but it'll also keep our soil super healthy. If a lot of people spend way too much time, money, and thought on outside inputs when so much of what we actually need to take care of our garden is right here for free at our very fingertips. Another thing right here is this light, because in the South, if you forget to pick your vegetables for dinner before dark, like I often do, you need to have some sort of light source. However, wearing a headlamp where there's like 10 bajillion mosquitoes and other bugs to bite your face and a collector on the light, I think that is a perfect option. So having a stationary lamp has saved me many a frustration with no seams in my eyes. Alright, so here we are. After not being here to tend it, as if I really tended it all anyway, but being gone for 10 days, this is going to be a little bit more chaotic than usual, which you can kind of see already in my pathway since this appears here. But right as you walk in, you're going to see plants everywhere. And that is a huge part of, I want to use this little space to the absolute fullest of its potential, but also the less open space there is, the less opportunity there is for weeds to take root and have plenty of sunlight and fertile soil, etc. But there's also less opportunity for moisture to evaporate from the soil. So yeah, this is how I get away with not needing a water. Also, right off the bat, we can look at these wood chips, which every commenter on the internet has been pleased to tell me is going to be the absolute bane of my gardening existence. And 12 years of doing this later, I would have to disagree, because does it look like my garden is suffering? It's not. So in here we have the first portion of what you will basically see as Anne's propagation station. These are all strawberries. I started with 100 strawberry crowns of different varieties 3 years ago, and I have been far more focused on creating more strawberry crowns or strawberry plants than actual strawberries, because this is the temporary garden. There is an orchard up there that has someday dreams that I plan on fully filling completely for free. So right now, we get some strawberries from the edges, but far more importantly, we actually have a very good barrier here against Johnson grass and crabgrass, which are the absolute bane of most southerners' gardening existence, because all of the stuff being right here around the garden keeps that stuff from coming in from the outside. And because I've spent so much time and energy building up the soil within the garden, they're obviously not coming from inside the garden. So we have a pretty good 1-2 punch there. Right here, another propagation experiment. I've been trying to graft fruit trees that I actually want onto native rootstocks that I find in the forest. This is one of those experiments. There's one over there. Will they work? As is the case with many experiments, possibly yes, possibly no. And failure is absolutely an option, and that's really fine. You'll also see pretty much everywhere you look, asparagus fronds. Something funny I learned when I started raising asparagus is that there is a male and a female asparagus plant. Female asparagus plants, like this one, put a lot of their energy into making seeds. These are future seed pods, asparagus seed pods, and therefore they make less asparagus crowns. Male asparagus plants don't put any energy into the seed making, and therefore offer a lot more actual asparagus spears that come up out of the soil. This is what the asparagus actually looks like out of the seed. And you'll see in here, each one of these little things will have 3 or 4 seeds in it. This is a good asparagus seed. And obviously, considering these are, 10 feet tall, I'd say that this is definitely a plant that we want to proliferate and propagate in our garden. Because, if we actually propagate all of the healthiest plants that grow the best in conditions and with other lack of care that they receive in the garden, then we get a lot higher yield from the offspring. Over here, we've got more.
It eliminates digging, maximizes vertical space.
As you can see, it's now basically got a few flowers, but has a ton of green growth, which is not ideal because it's completely insecure. It's just all about. You know what? This is an empty spot in the garden anyway, so at the very least, it's creating some soil shade. Also, you will see here the world's most itchy.
Have you ever wondered if it would be possible to grow greens and fresh vegetables inside?
Keep the soil moist below it, and also growing something useful in the meantime, and that is a whole bunch of things. We can't walk the plants further, but as I step over it, I'll show you the beginnings of the plant. This is an ancient grain and mature, so it'll have seed pods like this. These, when dried out, can be ground into flour or even as a breakfast cereal. This, however, is not an intended purpose for this plant. Actually, this is a fantastic extract plant. It extracts a whole bunch of garden predators because they are attracted to the end plant and make its leaves, and then I can have them in there. Creates some nice pops of color and some supports for smaller plants, but also this is not really my favorite, and it tastes pretty good to eat ducks, geese, chickens, pigs, other livestock we have here. Holy cow, it's so funny. Okay, we're good. Also amongst the asparagus, there's also a whole bunch of rhubarb that I've been propagating, some muscadine grapes that I've been propagating. Before we get too far out of here, I'll show you my hops. I've been growing my own citral hops here, and that reminds me of a very funny story. My first batch of brie that I brewed, I had a 5-gallon carboy fermenting in the closet in our house, and one day I was gone and I had added some sugar to speed the ferment and then forgotten about it. The carboy legit exploded like a bomb exploding, and it flooded out of the closet, like flooded half our house with beer, which was not really delightful. And I literally found pieces of glass from the carboy that had gone under the door and shot 30 feet away. So this was a big explosion. All right, on my left, we have some beans. I didn't harvest the very last of my beans last year because I knew that those seed pods would then provide seeds that would grow naturally at the earliest point in the season at which they could survive, and in fact they did. So we're actually coming to the end of our bean season now, which is perfect because I planted our winter snow peas down below them, and those are starting to grow up, and pretty soon I'll pull these vines off, and they'll then be able to get plenty of sunlight so that they can make their little solar panel leaves and grow up the trellis and hopefully give us a good snow pea crop. Oh, and I have a couple ripe strawberries, which is always fun, especially this late in the season. One of the things I've really tried to focus on here is propagating plants that are everbearing, or they'll have multiple harvests. So the strawberries, I will have less of an intense immediate harvest at the beginning of the season, but I'll be able to pick strawberries that I can actually use in a more, daily eating type manner all season long, which I really prefer anyway, because snacking is my favorite. Right here we have a tomato weed that got out of control, and we're just going to let it happen because it already happened. So if we come on to the other side, I'll have you look down and notice that there is a whole bunch of plant detritus, etc. And again, another huge thing that has helped me to be a more successful lazy gardener is to think about never leaving my soil uncovered. Uncovered soil is extremely susceptible to evaporation in the heat of the afternoon sun. We're often getting 100-degree plus days here, and last year we had a 90-day drought. Do you mind, Bella? Donkeys are desert animals, so I'm sure they appreciated the drought, but I'm trying to talk. So as I'm pulling off random detritus, I am doing what's often known as the chop and drop method, as like you chop something off your plant, you drop it, and then it decomposes in place. There is a composting myth in that, because if you have green things that you've lay down onto the soil and then they just dry up and just kind of die in place, you're losing a lot of the potential nutrients that you could capture if you composted them correctly. However, I don't really care about that, because actually what I'm doing right now is trying to trap as much extra moisture in the soil as possible, because I'm getting ready to plant all of my fall brassicas, my cabbages, kales, and other things that you'll see a lot of lack of, salad, edible greenery in the garden at this exact moment, because we're between seasons there. Because we have so many issues with white moths, cabbage worms, other things that will attack brassicas here, you have to let your other crop completely be gone out of the garden for a few weeks in between planting the new stuff, so that you don't have as much pest pressure in the fall. Right here, we have a very healthy turmeric plant. This is a shade-loving plant that I found out this year on accident is actually a perennial, not an annual, which means it's grown back from last year's plants, which I didn't even know was possible, and I was super pumped about for the sake of my curries, etc. We've got more beans here, but what's coolest on this trellis is this is a propagation place for one of my favorite foods in the world, passion fruit. The passion flower is the state wildflower of Tennessee, but these flowers turn into some really delicious and delightful fruit. Someone warned me about this, though, that if I planted passion fruit in my garden, that it would be very prolific, and they were in fact correct. So this is another thing that I'll just pull it up by the roots and then leave to sit there and do its thing. Here we have an errant dahlia that came from somewhere, and some dandelions. These are dandelions that don't go to seed, and dandelions are fantastic greens in salads. They're very nutrient dense. They're really great at sending taproots deep down into the soil and then bringing nutrients up to the top of the soil. But also, dandelions are my bunny Briggs's favorite food. So we grow lots of dandelions so Briggsy can have his favorite morning snack. Also, here's some more amaranth. This stuff, it grows like a weed, and technically in some circles might be considered a weed, but it's doing something for me, so I don't consider it to be a weed. Also, you'll see here too, I try to let as many of my plants that will go to seed, as long as they're not going to actually be in the way of other things that I need to successionally plant throughout the season, I'll just let them go to seed, and then they can drop their seeds in place, and then I don't even have to bother planting new seeds, because they'll happen naturally over time. And also, then I don't have to buy extra seeds either. There are watermelons everywhere you look because some of the best advice I've ever received is to plant what you're actually going to eat, which is great because then you actually eat it, you're motivated to grow it, and also you don't spend a bunch of time unnecessarily trying to coddle plants that offer nothing in return. The watermelon also is a fantastic ground cover, which again keeps that ground moist and gives them sweet, beautiful watermelons as a result. Right here we have some cucumbers that is definitely at the very tail end of its service, but cucumbers is something that I successionally plant throughout the year. So I try to plant cucumbers 3 or 4 times in the season. Sometimes I can get away with 5. These literally just didn't get pulled before I went to Alaska, and you can see the results of being gone for 10 days right here, an overgrown cucumber. And the best thing about having my garden right next to where my pigs are also fixing my pond, because as a good lazy farmer, why would I do that myself when I could have them help me do it? Kevin Bacon loves cucumbers. Hey, buddy! Let's see if we can get it before the chickens do. It's also probably pretty pertinent to mention that tomato cages are absolute garbage for keeping your tomatoes supported, but they're fantastic supports for cucumbers. So you'll see my cucumbers growing up very nicely in my tomato cages, and then you'll see my tomatoes over there staked with twine like the good Lord intended. Coming back in here, we are now entering my pepper forest. I'm a huge fan of hot sauce, and extremely hot sauce at that. So we've got Carolina Reapers, scorpions, habaneros. We are trying a new Korean pepper this year that's supposed to be very, very hot, which is exciting. Ooh, we've got a ripe one here. This is the world's hottest Caribbean pepper. It is twice as hot as the hottest habanero pepper at 100,000 Scovilles. Probably a dumb idea to munch on it, but oh my gosh. A couple years ago when I was making hot sauce, I accidentally maced myself with the hot sauce, and I was like screaming in pain. I called up Adam, asked him to bring me some cream. He came in with literally a tablespoon of cream, and I was like, Adam, my eyes are burning! Like, what the heck? And he's like, oh, I didn't want to waste it. And I was like, waste it on saving my eyesight? I'm sorry, we're still dealing with that one. Anyway, right here at our feet, we have Mexican sour gherkins, which when my friend got me the world's tiniest chef's knife, I wanted to make a video that looked like I was cutting a giant watermelon with a tiny knife, and that's why I first grew these, but it turns out that they're actually super good and will probably help calm the burning that's happening inside my mouth at this very moment. But anyway, they're everywhere. They grow kind of like a weed. Here we're in our okra forest, or at least the beginning parts of our okra forest. Okra is my second favorite food. I'm growing currently 5 different varieties of okra, and we're getting to the part of the season when I have to start picking it using a stepladder, which is hilarious because when I grew this stuff in Washington, I would baby it in my greenhouse all season long, and I would be lucky if I got 2 or 3 pieces of okra from like foot tall plants. And things are a little different here in Tennessee. It's like gardening in Jurassic Park. Here we have some zinnias, which are one of my favorite flowers to grow because they're super low maintenance and really, really beautiful. But they're also super easy to save the seeds to propagate. So you basically just wait till the flower has died off, and then each former flower is now a seed head for all of these seeds. And I think a lot of people get into gardening initially because they think that it's going to save them a whole bunch of money. I mean, that's certainly what we did. When I planted my first garden in Seattle 12 years ago, it was because most of our food was coming from the food bank, and I built my first raised beds out of garbage that I found in our neighborhood, some scrap wood. My first chickens basically ate a lot of the scraps from the food bank, and they provided us with eggs. It was a really amazing way to become a little bit more empowered and self-sufficient. I learned a lot along the way, but a lot of people get into gardening and then spend a ton of money. A little seed packet that has, between 1 and 300 seeds is between $5 and $7 now, when literally this is several hundred seeds just in one flower head. So if you can get into the seed saving and starting to make some of your own garden soil amendments and, just kind of starting to take care of your garden the same way that the forest takes care of itself, all of a sudden nothing is really that expensive because the fruit of any plant that we're picking is ultimately the seeds. Like tomatoes happen at the end of the season, and that's the plant's desire to put all of its energy into making fruit that is full of seeds that then will proliferate the plant season after season after season. Lest I actually just carry this pepper around and accidentally mace myself again, I'm going to toss it over to the chickens and the ducks. Fun fact, chickens actually cannot taste spicy food, but the capsicum that's in the seeds of peppers is actually an anti-parasitic, and so it's actually really good for them to eat them. So we'll save ourselves a Hot Ones challenge, and they can enjoy that. We have now arrived at the back end of my okra forest, and far more importantly, my fig propagation haven, let's just say. We are expecting many delicious figs very shortly, and each one of these plants has started as a cutting from other plants that I have been working on propagating. And so basically, just like the strawberries have gone from 100 plants to many, and the asparagus has gone from a few plants to many, these figs are going to be the same. Right next to it, we have a pawpaw tree that I have also grafted onto some local rootstock. And that's especially fascinating because this is a tree that usually grows in the shade. And I've put it in full sun just to see what happens. And it seems to be really thriving, which is very cool. Pawpaws are the only tropical fruit that grows in climates that have freezing temperatures. So it kind of tastes like a mix between a mango and a banana. And it's very delicious, and I'm very excited for that experiment to continue. We've also got kiwis, hardy kiwis. Those are good for frost temperatures of something like -20 or something, which mercifully we never get here, which is why we moved from a wintry climate to here. And then mixed in with some of it is some muscadine grapevines that all I really care about is the rootstock. So I, will just keep harvesting them as we go. All right, let's keep moving here. We're losing daylight. Oh yeah, we've got some more little baby figs down in here, more figs here, more okra. These are my Chinese mulberry plants, very much an experiment there. We have another tomato weed that has become quite prolific, and I'm sure Kevin Bacon would love some of this as well. Hey Kevin, seriously, look how cool this pond thing is. This pond was a livestock pond before we moved here, and it has not held water for the last 3.5 years that we've lived here. And I heard from an old timer that if we just put bentonite clay and some pigs in the pond, it would fix itself. And I'm hoping by next spring we'll be able to stock it and actually be able to fish someday soon, which would be super rad. Here we have another dahlia plant that really should have been trellised, so I could have taken care of it, but whatever. Oh, well, here's a watermelon that did not mature. And so we'll just toss this for the piggies too. But here's a ripe watermelon, and how do we know that it's ripe and it's actually ready to pick? Well, first of all, the greens have gotten pretty dark there. We can turn it around and we'll see the bottom. The white has started to turn a little bit yellow. Then also, you'll see, if you look at the plant, there's all these little cute tendrils, these little curlicues that look like pigtails. And when your watermelon is ripe, the tendrils on either side of the tendril that's attached to your watermelon will have turned brown. And if we give it a good old thump, the thump is actually an old wives' tale, but it kind of sounds hollow, and it sure does. So here we are. We're ready to go with this watermelon. In this same bed, I've got all kinds of other little things growing. I've also got some more sour gherkins growing in there. Marigolds are fantastic companion plants for pepper and tomato plants because they get rid of some of the pests that might negatively affect the plants. The remnants of the last parsnips of the season, I would love to put another crop of those in, but it's too late in the season. Along that whole back line there where the peppers and the okra are, underneath them, we've got an understory of a lot of shade-loving plants like rhubarb, which makes my absolute favorite rhubarb custard pie. My grandma used to make it, and so good. But anyway, so I've got a bunch of rhubarb crowns that I've propagated kind of down in there because if they were just out in the sun, it's way too hot here for them in the middle of the summer. So they get a lot of early sun before some of these other summer-loving crops have grown up high around it. But then in the midsummer, the late summer, when it's really too hot for them, these things give it some shade. And actually, this all, like if you look around my garden, you can see that I've spent quite a bit of time studying the way the forest takes care of itself and then wanting to replicate that as much as possible in my garden so that I don't have to spend any time taking care of it. And it's served me pretty well because I've worked on developing really healthy soil. I don't have to worry about crop rotation because I'm so concerned with having overstories and understories. I don't have to worry about watering as much. Wood itself acts like a sponge. So every time it rains, it collects all the excess moisture and keeps all of my minerals and nutrients from running away from my garden. It keeps everything down in the soil, but it also then releases that moisture over time. So if we like come down here and just remove the dry layer of wood chips on the soil, it doesn't take very long till we get down to very moist, wet soil, which is incredible considering the fact that this is a garden pathway that gets walked on all the time, compacted constantly. It's in the direct sun all day long, and yet here's where the water lives, and this is why we don't have to water. Then also, because we've got this understory everywhere that you look, weeds may be able to spread and proliferate to some degree because weed seeds can blow in, but most of the time I kind of don't even care. On top of a dry surface like wood chips that doesn't have any fertility in it, they're not going to be able to germinate. But also, because there's stuff everywhere, the leaves of plants are solar panels. Without access to the sun, those solar panels cannot send the energy that they've collected from the sun down to the roots to establish a healthy plant that actually would compete with any of the plants that we do want, which is pretty dang cool. Before we leave here, we'll just take a look. Under these leaves, we have some stuff that doesn't really look like much yet, but it will look like things soon. So I used to buy plants like a chump, and then I realized, why would I buy them when I could get them for free by stealing them from the forest every time I'm out there looking for mushrooms? So these are actually blueberry plants that I then also was really careful to collect the leaves of trees that were growing around these blueberry plants to then use those same leaves to shade the soil and hopefully inoculate the soil around the new blueberry plants with some of the microbiome from the environment from which they were stolen. We'll talk more about that in another video. This is my favorite kind of tomato. Sun-golds, delicious, delightful. If you're looking with a very critical eye, knowing that I am a farmer and I probably like to can things and preserve a lot of our summer garden harvest, you might notice that there's probably not enough of anything to actually can, and that would be very correct. Because in this garden, I only plant the kinds of things that I know I will be able to harvest and use in a timely manner. So like enough stuff for dinner every night, but not much beyond that. And that is because as a lazy gardener, I have really thought about what actually serves me in my garden and what won't. And spending a ton of time growing bulk produce and then having to deal with it whenever it happens to get ripe instead of being able to make the decision of when I'm able to actually deal with it is something that I realized a long time ago I just didn't want to do. So my neighbor has a CSA. They grow so many vegetables exactly the way that I would here, but I'm able to trade them raw milk for whatever garden produce I want, and therefore I also don't have to grow the bulk that I might need, and then can enjoy the gardening process with the stuff that I can actually use, which is pretty huge to me. We've got some more, I'm tangled, but that's okay. Got more passion fruit, more marigolds along with the tomatoes, and you'll see too, I've done the chop and wrap here. We're still getting all of these middle beds that are a little bit more shady during the hot part of the summer, ready to be planted with the fall crops of shade-loving, less sun-resistant plants. By the by, guardian dogs are doing their job. All right, I found a ripe passion fruit. Check it out. So now when we open up, we can see that golden goodness. And boy, howdy, is this stuff delicious. When I lived in Taiwan, I once entered a passion fruit eating contest, and I ate 48 passion fruits in one sitting. Not recommended. It was delicious though. Down in here, underneath some of this detritus, you'll see some of my fall snow peas. and some self-seeded dill coming up. Directly behind me, we have some golden raspberries, which are my personal favorite. These are from plants that I propagated from my mentor, Frank. He was 93 years old when we met, and he just passed away at 103 years old. And up till the very end, he was spending 8 hours a day working in his wood shop. And he very much had the philosophy that if you stop moving, you start turning into stone. And so it's been my goal, having known him, to do the things I love every day until I can no longer do them. Along with the golden raspberries, we also have a bunch of ever-bearing raspberries, which start bearing fruit in mid-May to early June and then keep on going. Last year, I picked the last raspberry on Thanksgiving Day, which is just wild to me, coming from living in a winter climate for most of my life. But these were from Frank's first farm that he grew up in Colville, Washington. He traded his bicycle during the Great Depression for a Model T Ford and then drove it to school because apparently that's the thing you could do back then. Here we have all of the wedding dahlias. My dad and I planted these flowers together 12 years ago in preparation for my upcoming wedding so that I could carry a bouquet of dahlias when I got married. And I have moved many places and poached the flowers from every single place and propagated them many times over since. In fact, actually, when we moved from Seattle to Tennessee 3.5 years ago, after we closed on the house, I went back and dug them up so that we could take them with us and plant them here because, it's a pretty cool thing. Not only to have this regular reminder of our wedding day, but also because my dad and I have a competition every year to see who can get their dahlias to bloom first, and I win every year. Not that I'm competitive, I just think it is important to keep someone like him humble. As we walk on here, you'll see where I have just picked all of our cabbages and kales and other brassicas to give the soil a quick rest. And this soil is very intentionally covered with leaves that I stole from the forest while I was mushroom hunting. I should probably mention that it was on private land. I don't want to get sued. So in my garden, I never have any soil that is uncovered. If I don't have it covered with wood mulch from like our local arborist or sawdust from my wood shop, I cover it with leaves or straw or something else just to make sure that we have that extra layer of protection from evaporation of moisture, minerals, nutrients, blah, 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 blah. Back over here, I feel like we skipped some important things. Artichokes are my third favorite food. Are we on third or fourth? But anyway, I really like them because you can put butter on them and they're great. This is a pepper plant that was growing in my okra forest and I'm trying to resurrect it and we'll just see if that works. But actually, this is a really important plant to kind of look at. You see that it's super, super wilty and it may or may not even recover. But one thing that I really like to focus on that helps me be a better lazy gardener is I don't baby plants. Either they're going to live or they're not. I try to plant plants that will thrive and I focus a whole lot more on root development than on plant prolificness because what's under the soil is what's going to make what happens on top of the soil actually happen. As part of that, I also plant plants that are going to work in this climate. I plant plants that I want to eat, and I also plant plants at the time that they are most likely to be successful. So like over here, we have some eggplant plants that I planted too early in the season, and you can see the evidence of that. They have gotten absolutely decimated by flea beetles. And the gardening Anne of 10 years ago might have sprayed them with some flea beetle resistant pest spray that I had spent money on that was still organic certified and may or may not actually work. But the lazy gardening Anne, who has now done this for 12 years and realized that it really is not worth it to try to limp struggling plants along. I also don't want to spend the time, the money, or anything else trying to help things that just aren't going to thrive. I also don't want to put, vegetable covers on and off of my garden just to keep the bugs out. Like, we live in a place, there's a lot of bugs, so you can either live through it or you can't. So sometimes, if I really want to try to help it along, I'll come along and I'll take off the worst diseased leaves, because the plant is going to have to put energy into trying to repair these leaves, or perhaps it could put energy into creating new leaves. But ultimately, you also really want to be careful. Again, leaves of plants are these solar panels that are collecting the sun's energy and sending it down into the roots. So if you take more than 1/3 of the plant at a time, then you're going to put the plant into recovery or shock, which then is going to stunt its growth. So, like, you know what? Maybe we plant eggplants later in the season next year, or maybe we just don't plant them at all. This is actually pretty cool. So this is my pepper propagation box. So peppers, a lot like tomatoes, you can actually take little sections of the pepper plant and cut them off and reroot them, which is what I'm doing in here. And this is actually because last year, for the very first time, I was able to overwinter pepper plants that had been fully productive the year prior, and then plant them in the spring and get a super early and very robust pepper crop, which was super rad. So I've actually made these raised beds that can convert into cold frames by just putting on the lid. And this will help us to extend our growing season, often up to a month or two, because we don't get hard frosts until sometimes December or even January here. So that's pretty sweet. Also, you can see this little pipe here. This is another experiment. I'm constantly doing them. And this is my attempt at getting nutrients down into the soil with as little input as possible. So I'll put some composting